and a very, very warm welcome to Camelot Castle. It is an absolute pleasure to have you all here. Now, tonight, we are incredibly honored because we actually are going to present to you, our friends here at Camelot Castle, live from the United States, one of the world's greatest freedom fighters and an extraordinarily brave filmmaker who, within the conservative movement in America, I would say there are few people whose star is rising as much as Amy Horowitz's star. He really is an extraordinary human being. I have a short little clip here, which I'm going to show you of Amy in action. And I'm just going to put that up on the screen now and see if our technical division can get that working. So here we go. Here it is.
So you made this short documentary. It was about immigrant crime in Sweden. Yeah. Tucker Carlson interviewed you about the film, talking about how the Swedish public feels about the situation. Let's watch this.
They know that this crime is happening. They can feel it. The statistics are clear, but they would refer to what is the root cause behind it and say, oh, it's just more, it happened to be more violence. It's men who are raping people, not the refugees. They'll make excuses for it. The majority of the population in Sweden still want to have an open door policy. It's confounding.
So the president sees your interview, which means you influenced him.
Were they aware of who you were at all? Were they suspicious of you? Were they saying, hey, what are you doing? What kind of questions are you asking? I mean, did you feel they were
highly
being
suspicious.
Followed?
And I was being followed. We had to actually do some kind of like kind of moves to get away from them and grab people and kind of move them away so they could see what we're saying. By the way, they were very suspicious of anybody from possibly could be from Fox News. They said to me, Fox News has been around here, so we're very suspicious of what's going on. They're creating, get this is the area of narco violence, some of the greatest narco violence in Mexico. Fox News is creating an unsafe environment.
That's what they told you?
That's what they told me.
Are you serious?
I'm deadly serious. No pun intended.
Caught on camera, the disturbing reaction to the American flag as it is waved on one of the country's most liberal campuses.
I love America. This country stands for freedom. Yeah.
God is not counting us. America.
Great. Well, here's what happened when that same filmmaker shouts jihad rants while waving an ISIS flag at Berkeley.
I stand against America. ISIS protect Islam. I denounce the United States.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Thank you.
I love that you're saying that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That filmmaker, Ami Horowitz, is back with us for his latest experiment. Ami, pretty disturbing from what we saw. How much did you edit that to get a certain persuasion? How much? What do we get?
Yeah, I mean, what you see there is basically reflective of the general sentiment that I experienced there. So with the American flag, for example, the vast majority of people came up to me, had a extraordinarily negative response, from something as innocuous as, hey, America's not great, to F America, which we got over and over again. I'm not going to
dismantle the same nation that is deemed legitimate. We kind of have to destroy it. We said, the property, the consumption, capitalism.
I mean, white people own slaves, so.
All we need is like the love of one another and the communal aspect of one another and taking care of each other. A super devout Christian guy came here. He was spouting about, God is glory. He hates homosexuals. He hates abortions. He was sitting there spreading, very divisive words. And he was allowed to do it. Nobody hit him. He didn't get tackled to the ground. That Christian guy did get tackled. They had him on the ground choking him out.
While these sentiments were the majority opinion of most people in the CHAZ, was it reflective of the leadership of this Lilliputian utopia? The question was answered when we interviewed Jaden Grayson, one of the leaders of this movement.
Every single day that I show up here, I'm not here to peacefully protest. I'm here to disrupt until my demands are met. You cannot rebuild until you break it all the way down. Respond to the demands of the people or prepare to be met with any means necessary. By any means necessary.
That's not just a slogan.
No. No, it's not a slogan. It's not even a warning. I'm letting people know what comes next.
Well, what can I say? That is a remarkable piece of filmmaking. And tonight we are joined, as I said, and I want to say thank you so much to everybody that has shared this in their various different groups. We're joined from people from Switzerland, from Belgium, from France, all over Europe. And of course, you know, this is a very, very interesting time. Please, can I bring on screen Amy?
Hey!
Can you hear us now?
I can hear
There we go. We
Goodness.
just swapped sides. We swapped sides. You know what? Our technical division at Camelot Castle TV is not the finest, and the reason for that it's evolving. And generally, that's because I'm in charge of the technical division. This is very much a bootstrapping TV network, but we have now many people. This has now been shared into many groups across the planet. Amy Horowitz, you are one of America's greatest living freedom fighters. And the first thing that I would, no, you are. And the first thing I would like to do is acknowledge what you have been doing in America. And it is so, so important. And over here, the problem is we don't even have Fox News. Now, even Fox News in America is sometimes flawed, but we don't even have a Fox News over here. All we've got is the BBC, which is a sort of a left-wing communist organization. And then we have Channel 4, which is a sort of a Trotsky type of an organization. That's even further left than the BBC. So that's all we have over here. Could you tell us, just give us a snapshot of what is going on in America, as you see?
Wow, that's, you know, how much time do we have? I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, America is extraordinarily divided. Like I've always felt that the world will eventually, its axis will eventually be righted because we have America as a counterweight. That America ultimately, despite all the flaws that we have as a country, and we have many, of course, that ultimately all the problems we've seen across Asia and Europe and Africa would be righted because of America. And for the first time in my life, I'm not certain that's true anymore. We have had, look, the thing that my video often does is I try to expose radicalism, like real radicalism. The problem is, and my point was that I think this radicalism was always hidden among the people on the left. And what I was doing was exposing that radicalism to the world. What I didn't realize was that quickly that radicalism became normative among the left. And we're seeing that today. Some things I couldn't even have predicted. Some of them I very much predicted. I went around just a few years ago asking university students at George Washington University, a premier prestigious university, should we change the name of the school? Everybody laughed and said, come on, I know you had a few people who agree with you, but that's not a mainstream normative thought. Well, that's exactly what's become, exactly what that video predicted. So the problem is in America, we have an extraordinarily divisive political environment, and more divisive than in my lifetime, I think in most people's lifetimes. And I am definitely afraid that divisiveness will become a fracture. And that fracture will not only be the loss to our country, but a loss to the world, because I really don't think without America's balance as a ballast to this world, I think the world is going to go down to a very dark place. Like I've said before, Pax Americana will not last forever, right? It never, at some point in the future, I don't know if it's 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now, but someday Pax Americana will end. One thing I know for certain is that historians will look at that day and say that was the beginning of a new dark age for humanity. And the people on the left in our country, they're looking to hasten that day, okay? They're looking to guide this world into anarchy. They want to see this world, this descent into anarchy. And this is not, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to create, and I'm trying not to be hyperbolic at all. I truly believe that because they don't think, they want to destroy the world, they want to burn it down, literally and figuratively. and they want to remake it in their own warped neo-Marxist anarchic image. And that's unfortunately that's the battle line that we have right now. And I'm trying to be on the front lines of that ideological battle. Sometimes it's a physical battle.
Well, I saw that. And of course, you have actually been to, as we saw there in the video clip, the new nation of CHAZ, which for those people that are English here and in Europe, could you tell us about this new sovereign nation that has sprung up in the middle of Seattle, I believe it is?
Yeah, so I went to the CHAZ consulate here in New York. I got a visa and I headed over. And look, I think it's a little bit ironic when they yell and scream about how the United States is illegitimate because we took land that didn't belong to us. And they kind of use the same playbook to create their little fiefdom in CHAZ or CHOP, whatever they call it now. Look, it's exactly what we thought it was going to become. Anarchy began to reign soon thereafter. Violence exploded across it. People were killed there. When I first got there, this is before they recognized me. Obviously, when they recognized me, we had to leave before we were attacked. But we were threatened when we first got there because we had cameras. They didn't want to expose what's really happening there. Two super armed guards, all AR-17s, kitted out in full military gear, came up to us and started interrogating us as to why we were there. So it got ugly very quickly. And again, all I do is I ask the right questions, right? I'm not there to layer onto them my point of view or my perspective. I just ask the right questions, and then they give me what the truth is. And the truth is their radical agenda was exposed. These are people that are looking to we know, abolish the police. Like, that's an obvious thing they're trying to do. They've made that clear. But beyond that, they were clear in saying they want to abolish the judicial system of America. They want to abolish the prison system. Again, it's all toward the same cause. They want to guide the descent of this country and the world into anarchy. They're just a symptom of a larger problem, right? That's really what it comes down to.
And I mean, obviously, we have been watching the events play out in America, and over here in England, now we are witnessing a transference, if you like, of that occurring in this country. I mean, and I think it's important that the voters here and the voters in America, and I would say probably we have about a 50-50 audience. So about 50% of our audience is from the United States, and about 50% is here, because obviously we've done a lot of work with Turning Point in the USA. How bad, how much worse could it get? I mean, are we at the bottom yet? Or in other words, you look at a market, it goes down, and eventually it turns around.
I think if it's a market, I would buy. Okay, that's the optimistic side of me. I would buy. I think we are at the market bottom. I don't see how it can get worse. I mean, the only way it gets worse is a fracturing of the United States into 50 separate countries. I mean, that's where that's where I think God forbid we ever end up. But I don't think we're anywhere near that. I don't think that's what's going to become. I think there is a silent majority who is getting sick and tired of this radicalism that they're seeing. And frankly, you talked about the president and where the election might go. The truth is, I think this is going to boomerang in the president's favor, because what I think most people are going to look at this reactionary, again, I keep using the word anarchic because that's really what it is, this anarchic radicalism. And they're going to assign this to the Democrats, because the it's left eating its own. That's what it's become. And the Democrats have spawned this. And they've continued to hand over the Democratic Party to the radicals, the Imar Ulans, Rashida Tlaibs. These are the people, and the AOCs, these are the people who they've handed the keys to the kingdom, pun intended for you guys. And we're now paying the price because the inmates are in the asylum, and this is the natural conclusion of that. So I think a lot of people, the silent majority, are looking politically at this and saying, well, do I want to really empower these people, or do we want to go back to where I think we should be? And I think ultimately it will look right now it's hurting the president. There's no question. He is getting killed in the polls. he's getting it's really a pincer. It's a pincer move because he's got it from the coronavirus and he's got it from the racial unrest. Ultimately, I think, and we have a few more months, most people are going to look at this problem and say, this is really a Democratic problem. This is a leftist problem. This is not a problem of the right. This is not a problem of Trump. So the optimistic side of me is looking at that and saying, I think that's where the election might turn.
So you think do you believe the polls at the moment? Do you think those polls are accurate, or do you think those polls are done by pollsters that have an agenda, or do you think that he seriously does have a problem?
I think the polls are accurate. I think the polls are rarely wrong. Look, even in the last election, the polls weren't wrong. They had a little bit wrong at state by state because they were really, really, really close. But they had it right nationally. He lost nationally, right? He lost the popular vote, so they had it right. But they just had it wrong in terms of the electoral college. So I think the polls are accurate. I think he's got a problem. I think there's a lot of worry in the White House right now. I know there's worry in the White House right now. But that doesn't mean this thing is so fast moving, right? That it could turn on a dime. Like even when the polls were showing the polls are they're a snapshot of where we are today. The polls are not predictive. That's not what the role of a poll does. So as a snapshot today, if the election were held today, he would probably lose. But they're not held today. They're going to be held in a few months. And more accurate than the polls even is Vegas, right? Because money is always more accurate. People, when they bet their money, they try to be really, really deliberative because it's their money they're talking about. Vegas, for the first time, has the president losing. But even when the poll showed him down, Vegas had him winning. And it's still very, very close. So unless I see this kind of turning, again, I think it's a bottom. I see it turning. And if I were to bet my money today, heart and money, I would bet the president would win.
Well, that's very good to hear. Now, we did have another big development in America today, and that is, of course, that General Flynn was exonerated. Is that an area that could you shed a little bit of light on that for our audience? What does that mean for politics in America?
I could. I don't think it means a lot politically in the sense of electorally. General Flynn's a great guy. In fact, he and I are going to be sharing an award together in a couple of months. We'll be sharing the stage together, and I'm proud of that. What happened in that situation was, and this is where it kind of becomes political, is that, the president keeps talking about a deep state, and he gets laughed at. What is deep state? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? It's a democratic country, and it is a democratic country. But what we do have here, and you guys have the same thing in England, is you have an entrenched bureaucratic class, right? And they don't change for the most part based on electoral changes. They're not lifetime appointments, but they're not political appointments. They are career officers, and they have stayed through a number of elections. This great story I'd like to talk about, if you want to call it the deep state or the bureaucracy, was when Reagan became president, and George Shultz as his Secretary of State.
That's right.
What George Shultz did was he brought all of his head of desks. So every country has a head of desk. And he brought them all in, and he brought them to his office. They had this big globe there. And he asked them all, could you please point to your country? And they all would spin the globe, and they'd point to Saudi Arabia and Germany and the UAE and everywhere else, and Panama. And every time he corrected them and said, no, that's not your country. And he flipped the globe to America and goes, this is your country. They lose sight of that, right? There's a disease called clientitis, where when you spend so much time with your client state, you become an advocate for the state. That's the problem with the deep state or the bureaucratic class. So what we had with General Flynn was there was an allergic reaction to the president's victory. They were looking for anything to bring him down. And this is where we had this wild goose chase that cost us millions of dollars, 2 years of our precious political time in trying to get the president on this whole Russia hoax and then ultimately the Ukraine hoax. And General Flynn was kind of caught in that. And apparently, and there was really no evidence for it. He was essentially, he was entrapped. He was not essentially, he was entrapped. We know that. And thank God he was exonerated for it. But what it will play into in the election is that there is this underclass, this political bureaucracy that is more partisan and is looking to go after the president, is not looking to do the work of the people.
That's very.
By the way, if I'm going on too long with these answers,
No. It's very.
Right.
I'm interested to hear your take on things because, of course, you are a very well respected pundit and filmmaker, in the United States. And for those that have just joined us, we're joined tonight by Amy Horowitz. So what are your plans over the next few months, Amy? What are you? Do you have any big projects that you're pushing forward with? We're joined tonight by Amanda Eliash, who is on the feed. She founded the Head Fortune, the Eliash Head Fortune, and built that up into a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And she's on the feed tonight. What are your goals in relation to your career?
So I can tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
That's all right.
So I've got a lot of things planned. Look, there's a lot to do. I've hired a team of people who have worked with a very, very A-list celebrity in terms of his work, in terms of entrapping people and getting people to come on camera with him. I'm not gonna say who he is. You might be able to guess. His team is working with me because I'm going to bring down some of the largest and most radical people in the United States. I've got a plan to get these people because let me tell you, they are dangerous to our country. And so, yeah, I'm gonna do a lot of undercover work over the next 6 months. I'm gonna do a lot more work exposing radicals, both undercover and straight up. There's too much at stake in our country that needs to be unveiled to the American people because they're having the wool over their eyes, cover their eyes because there's, this Black Lives Matter movement is a perfect example we're talking about. The radicalization, the radical nature of Black Lives Matter movement, not the people who believes that Black Lives Matter, because I believe that, you believe that, it's obvious. In fact, it's so obvious it's somewhat insulting, if I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. But the movement itself is extraordinarily radical. Okay, again, it's a neo-Marxist organization. I'm not saying that, they say that themselves. And that needs to be exposed because they are, look, they're working with Antifa. One of the great things about my job is I get to go to all the cool hot spots in the country. One of the places I went to was Minneapolis. I, unfortunately, had to watch an American city in flames. It broke my heart, okay? I saw the looting firsthand. In fact, at one point, and it's on camera, my video in Minneapolis, we witnessed an older white gentleman being attacked with a thick stick and stones by this thug. And I had to, if I didn't get involved, this guy would have been killed. Thank God I was there. But I had to grab this guy. I had to push him off this old gentleman. He was going to kill him. This kind of action, I have to say this over and over again, this kind of action is looked upon by the Black Lives Matter movement, and they look on it with glee. I hate to say it, but it's true. They will tell you, if you ask them, we need to burn this S down in order to rebuild this country in their warped image. I can't say that enough. These are radical people doing radical work, and not just the American, because you have the Black Lives Matter movement in your country as well. I can't speak to the leadership there. And again, I'm not talking about the people who are following the movement. I understand why they're doing it. But what I'm trying to tell them and impress upon them is they're following radicals, and I am looking to expose these people.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't really understand the movement much here, but I do know England. England is one of the least racist countries that I've ever visited. Very welcoming of all races. One question I've been curious about recently: how is the president perceived in Israel? Do you have any thoughts on that? What is his relationship with the Jewish power blocks?
He has a very good relationship with the people. So he's actually one of the most popular leaders in Israel. The interesting thing about Israeli politics is that 20 years ago, there was right and left and center, and a very strong left. The left doesn't really exist in Israel anymore. Since Israel's in the front lines of this ideological battle, literally on the front lines, and they have paid the price for this battle in blood, the Israeli people understand what they're facing. They understand the radicalism and the challenges in front of them. So because of that, what you've seen is very interesting. The left in Israel has been destroyed. There is no left anymore. There is center left, and there's center right, and there's the right. And it's incredible. I have seen in the last 20, in fact, I've never seen this ever. Yeah, go ahead.
I should say that Irina and we were received in Jerusalem with Charlie Kirk the other day, and we visited there, and we were received by a very interesting group there called Im Teritzu.
Sure,
Im Teritzu, and they gave us a tour of Judea, Samaria, and so we were able to see the very complicated nature of the politics there. What we picked up there is that President Trump is incredibly popular in Israel, but I just wondered if that is still the case. And you feel there's a strong support there from the Jewish lobby.
Yeah. No, I mean, just forget the Jewish lobby. Just the people of Israel are they are very supportive, and they are appreciative of. Unlike, unfortunately, the Jewish population in America, which is for the most part left and left center, and vote Democratic. They reliably vote for the Democratic Party every year. Where I don't think there's a whole lot of appreciation from them in the United States. There's great appreciation for them in Israel because, again, they are on the front lines. They are undoubtedly loyal to the president because of what he did, both in terms of his support for Israel, moving the embassy. I mean, I can go on and on about his support there. And he understands, again, the radicalism and the danger of the Palestinians in particular. Forget Hamas. The Palestinian Authority itself has become extraordinarily radicalized. And I have done a number of undercover work with them. I interviewed Hamas in the West Bank undercover. I recently came back and I'm about to release that in the next couple of months, but I expose what the Palestinians are doing to the gay community. They are persecuting the gay community unbelievably. It's incredible what's happening to the gay community in the Palestinian territories.
Really?
Yes. They are.
Give an example of what they're doing to the gay community.
They're arresting and killing them. They are. I was sitting with a very popular imam in the West Bank. I'm not talking about Hamas, mind you, right? Okay, you can look at them and say, okay, they're the radicals. I'm talking about PA imams, okay? And I'm sitting with this one guy. I asked him, I said, do you have parents who come to you and say, oh, look, I have a problem. I found out my child is gay. What should I do? Look, that happens to a lot of people. It happens in the church and synagogues where people are wrestling with these issues.
Of course it does.
He goes all the time. I go, what do you tell them? He goes, you have to kill them. Matter of fact, the honor killings against gay people, the LGBT community in the Palestinian territories is out of control. They're leaving in flocks. They're being arrested and beaten and raped in jails, and they're being killed not only by the PA itself or members of the PA. They're being killed by their families. Those people are walking out scot-free. It is incredible, and the president understands the issues facing not just the Jewish people in Israel, but the Palestinians themselves, who also long to be free from this tyranny of Hamas and the PA. So
this is fascinating. Actually, Irina's grandfather is from Grodno, which is the same place that Jared Kushner is from, funnily enough. So I think you could well be related to Jared, actually. Who knows? But
Irina, you kind of look like Ivanka.
I'm sorry?
Irina kind of looks like Ivanka. She's got that beautiful kind of model look to her.
Well, you're very kind. You're very gracious.
Eastern European, perhaps.
Yeah. That is.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I could, because I think Ivanka's mother is Eastern European as well, isn't she?
She is.
So, no, it's very, very. I remember when I saw during the campaign, if you remember, the president spoke to AIPAC.
Yes.
And I really felt that was a turning point for his campaign, because I think the Israeli community saw that they would have an ally. And when we were in Jerusalem with Charlie Kirk, I know that there was conversations, and shortly after that, the sovereignty of the Golan Heights was restored. And then just prior to that, the embassy had been moved, and then of course there is this proposal for the peace plan. Do you feel that there is a possibility that Jared's peace plan could pull things together, or what's the feeling about that? Do you think that is a possibility? Not in the first term, I don't think, but if he gets a second term, or you think there's other things that need to be...
Are you asking me if I would bet on it? If I was putting my money on it?
Well,
the
why
answer
not?
would be probably not.
No.
But having said that, I'll say this. We're in a better situation now than we ever have to have a peace plan between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And the reason why we are is because there's been an incredible geopolitical shift in the Arab world. Actually, we have Iran to thank for that. The Sunni nations, which have been so anti-Israel for so many years, have shifted on their axis to, if not be pro-Israel, to take a position where they're going to be more hands-off when it comes to Israel. Because they understand that Israel is not a threat to the Arab world, okay? It has taken them decades to realize this, wars to realize this. Israel has never been a threat to the Arab world. Israel wants to live in peace.
That's what we understood when we went there, you know, and our tour guide said, he gave us a very, very good example, is that if the IDF were to get rid of all of their weapons
for 2 days.
For 2 days, there would be a serious problem. If Hamas was to get rid of their weapons for 2 days, Israel there'd be no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, the saying goes that the day that the Palestinians put their weapons down, there'll be peace. The day the Israelis put their weapons down, there'll be genocide.
That's right.
That's it.
And
I mean, you butchered it. You butchered the line, but okay.
Yeah, I did. That's what I did. I'm not familiar with the subject, but I got the concept right. I had the general idea right. But people, you know, and I would have discussions about Israel before I had visited Jerusalem. And of course, you know, when you turn up in Jerusalem, and we stayed at a lovely hotel there, the King David Hotel, which sort of looks over the old city. And you just perceive, we actually arrived there the night that the Sabbath was finishing. And they did this beautiful ceremony in the lobby. It was just a beautiful thing to see as the Sabbath comes to an end. And because we arrived there, we flew in on the day of the Sabbath. And of course, you just until one has actually experienced that, it's visceral. You can feel the politics there, and but I too feel that one of the great hopes of the Trump presidency is the possibility that somebody might venture forward and bring about some sort of a peace in that area.
So I think there's two things at play. One is what I said before, was that now the Arabs are not going to be obstacles to peace, because they realize that Iran is the threat. Iran and the Shiites are a threat to Sunni peace, and that they're the threat and not Israel. So that's number one. So they are no longer a consistent ally for the Palestinians. So that's helpful. That's number one on the list of what could lead ultimately to a peace. Two is the president, the way he's handling the Palestinians, he is disabusing them of the illusion that they could keep Jerusalem as their capital, okay? And that they will have sovereignty over the old city and the Western Wall and all these holy places for Jews. That has always been one of the great stumbling blocks to peace, because the people were fed they were fed this illusion that this is something that could be a reality for them. So they've taken a very hard line. The president had disabused them of this notion, and therefore they're now becoming more realistic on what they can and cannot get. They have been offered everything they've wanted in the past by both right-wing governments and left-wing governments, and they have consistently failed to accept them because they looked at Europe and they looked at democratic presidents and said, oh, you know what, you'll have our back on this. And we've never had a realistic negotiation. I think this president, and God willing, he'll have another 4 years, can then say to them, look, I want peace as much as you do, but we have to be realistic about what you can get. And if you move incrementally, you will have ultimately what you want. Can they be trusted to have a state today? No, they can't. And they have to come to the realization. And by the way, the reason why the Palestinian leadership has always punted on a state, because they don't want a state. When they have a state, they're going to have to be accountable. And I did another video where I exposed the tremendous amount of fraud that goes on in the Palestinian Authority, and the money that's pocketed, billions of dollars, that's never seen by the Palestinian people, but pocketed by the PA leadership. Okay,
yeah.
I drove by these unbelievable villas right next to extraordinary poverty, right down the street that Palestinians are living in. These shacks that are ridden with holes, and right next to them are these villas where these Palestinian leadership are living in like kings. And they don't want to have the accountability of a state. They like the situation now because they get billions in aid. They don't have to produce anything, and they can pocket the money. Look, Arafat died a billionaire. Okay, I remember he was interviewed one time.
Sorry.
CNN.
Hang on a second. Arafat died a billionaire.
A multi-billionaire. In fact, I remember he was being interviewed by Larry King on CNN, and Larry King, to his credit, asked him. He goes, "You've amassed extraordinary wealth. How did you get that money?" I said, "I can't believe CNN is asking this question." Here was Arafat's answer: "Most people don't know, but I was an engineer before I became a freedom fighter." And CNN and Larry King goes, "Oh, okay, that answers the question." Oh yeah, no, he died. In fact, the PA, since he died, Suhat Arafat, his wife, although it was a sham marriage, who now lives in luxury in Paris, she was told that you better return a portion of this money, otherwise you'll never live to use it. So they actually clawed back some of the. She still is she's a centimillionaire, but much of the money was clawed back. Kind of her arm was twisted to get some of the money back. But, oh yeah, he died a billionaire.
Wow, unbelievable.
Well, I had breakfast with Larry King in Beverly Hills the other day, and I'll give Larry a good 10 out of 10 for asking the question, but 1 out of 10 for pushing off for the follow-up.
He eats at the same place every morning.
Nate Niles.
That's right.
Nate Niles, that's where we were, yeah. Yeah, he's a lovely man. And, well, I see him when I go off to Hollywood or Beverly Hills, really. But he has breakfast there literally every morning, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He does.
But yeah. So this is very interesting. I mean, this is one of our concepts, is that the spiritual relationship between Israel and the rest of the world is very, very important, and the prayer that occurs in Israel, and it was such an honor to witness it there at the Western Wall, is very, very important. And there is a spiritual relationship between the prayer that occurs in Jerusalem and the spiritual health, and I believe the physical health of the world. And it's a sort of a hidden factor that some people, I feel, don't fully understand politically. There is a relationship between the spiritual health of Israel and the importance of protecting Israel as a nation, and the health of the United States and the health of the rest of the world, both spiritually and physically and economically. And it's almost as if it's a global organism. So without really understanding the fact that these things are connected, there is a connection between every day the prayers. In fact, one of the things I was most worried about the lockdown was how that suppressed prayer in Jerusalem, because there's even a thing, as I understand, where there needs to be a certain number of people gathered in order for prayer to be as effective as it should be. And it's sort of interesting. I was very pleased to see that is getting going again. And of course, the opening up of our churches here in England are important as well. But I see it that way. So I'm glad we had the opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't work quite that way. Like we're referring to as a minyan, where 10 people have to come together. It's not the prayer. I don't want to get too in the weeds on spirituality, but it's not that God. It's not for God. You don't do it for God. God doesn't need anything from us, right? We need from Him, and really, it's more about It's one of the reasons why Israel has had a continuous the religion has continued as a continuity for these thousands of years, because of the synagogue brings the Jews together. And that the idea of these 10 people is more about Jews coming together to pray as one, as a single organism, rather than something that God needs. God doesn't need our prayer, and he doesn't need 10 people to come together to pray for him. Look, this thing has been difficult for me, as I'm a very spiritual person. I go to synagogue every Shabbat, and we haven't had synagogue in months. But it's, when you talk about the spiritual bond that Israel has with the rest of the world, I think it's important to point out, and I hate to say it, but I don't want to bring us down here, but there is a concerted effort to destroy that bond by the left. And the anti-Semitism that is occurring in the left. Look, I get all the time people telling me, well, wait, look at the growth in anti-Semitism since Trump has become president. And the reality is that there's been an absolute growth in anti-Semitism. But the growth in anti-Semitism is not from the right. It's from the left. Look, I have met and interviewed neo-Nazis in England, in the United States. I've met with the KKK. Nobody knows them better than me. I understand them. I've met them. I've felt them. I've fought with them. But the real growth in anti-Semitism is coming from the left. And I hate to say this, but this is true. You look at the Black Lives Matter movement, okay? The Black Lives Matter movement is deeply anti-Semitic, deeply anti-Israel. In their charter, right, you would think that this is an organization dedicated toward one thing, the betterment and the empowerment of the Black community, which I can get behind. But I wonder why, in their charter, they mention one thing unrelated to Black lives, which is the canard, the blood libel, that the Jews are committing genocide. They had to spill ink in their charter to talk about Israel. That's what they want to talk about. That, to me, is the height of anti-Semitism. And, it is, and unfortunately has cost Jewish blood because, and I hate to say this, I had another video. There was I don't know if you guys know this in England, but there was a rash of attacks and killings against Jews in Brooklyn and in Muncie in the New York area, really around the country, but really centered in New York. And Jews were killed, beaten on the streets by the Black community because their leadership has pushed these lies to them that the Jews own. You would have more if the Jews had less. The Jews have more on your back. That's what they're taught. And unfortunately, it's come to a reaction where they have attacked Jews. There's more.
The great culprit of this is Minister Farrakhan, who has, basically been diabolical in this sense of stirring up anti-Semitism. And
by the way, he's still on Twitter. Katie Hopkins, which I'm sure you know well. I'm sure you heard her on the show. Katie Hopkins, who is a intelligent, funny woman, not a racist bone in her body, was kicked off of Twitter for making what I thought was actually a pretty funny joke. Okay, distasteful maybe, but funny. Distasteful at the worst. Mr. Farrakhan has been spewing his anti-Semitism. He is still on Twitter. Explain that to me.
I don't understand.
I'm getting all worked up here.
No, but I mean, I think you know what? It's totally okay to get angry over an injustice, and I think he has been allowed to spew that bile. The other thing that to be honest with you, find completely shocking is Jewish people that live in Hollywood that aren't as supportive as Israel, as many evangelical Christians in America. I find to be an extraordinary anomaly.
That's an anomaly.
And a lot of the left-wing, actors and actresses and celebrities, which of course, one of the blessings of the current time is that our relationship with these celebrities has changed utterly. Because of, but I find that their disloyalty towards Israel is quite shocking. I don't know if you've observed that, but that's.
You think I haven't observed that?
I don't know.
I haven't observed that.
I don't know. I mean, that's my observation. Have you observed that?
So I'll tell you. Okay, so here's the situation with Jews politically. So I'll go back. I'll give you a little bit of history. So Jews have always viewed any kind of politics, any country they've ever been in, right, through the lens of social justice. For obvious reasons, because of our history of persecution, Jews have always looked their politics through the prism of social justice. Jews were always reliable Republicans in America. And that's because of the legacy of the Republican Party when it came to slavery. And because Lincoln freed the slaves, they were reliable Republicans for generations. It switched, it flipped when Roosevelt became president. And they then mistakenly began to look at the Democrats as the champions of social justice. They never turned back. Israel, and it breaks my heart to say this, Israel is not, and they've done polls, so this is reliable information, over the last 10 years has fallen out of the top 10 issues that Jews care about. It's not even the top 10. And so when you see the Democratic Party consistently attack Israel, it has not moved the needle for the Jews at all because it's not an issue they care about all that much. I don't talk about all Jews, but it's about 80%, 75, 80% just don't care about Israel, unfortunately. I think now what they do care about is anti-Semitism because that affects them, right? It affects them personally. I think you're starting to see a shift among Jews to say, taking a closer look, a critical look at the left and saying, I've been giving you guys a pass for years, but it's hard for me to tolerate when the Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib open, disgusting anti-Semites are feted in the Democratic Party. Even the Jews in America kind of get fed up with that and look at that askance. So we're starting to see a little bit of a shift. I would love it if the president could get 25% of the Jewish vote. That's essentially what Reagan got. It's only gone downhill from there. 25% of the Jewish vote would be a victory, and I think he has a shot at it, to be honest.
Well, I think the moves he's made for Israel. I gather there's even a village been named after him in the Golan Heights, as I understand.
Is that true?
Yeah, there is. Trump Town or something. I think they have. I think there was I even saw a photograph because we were there actually, and when just before that decision was made, and we're aware of a few sort of backlines communications that had occurred. And I think that America's relationship with Israel is very, very important. I think it's important in terms of world peace. I think it's important for the health of the nation. And I think, we pay attention to that, don't we, darling?
Very much so, very much so.
It's a very interesting trend. And I do think that he is much more appreciated than any previous president in that regard. Amy, you've been
make no mistake about it. Israel is the canary in the coal mine.
That's my point. That's absolutely how I would say that, and it's an indicator. So now, is there any way we've got a number of people asking on there, how can people support you? How can they follow you? You've been incredibly giving of your time and of your insights, but what is the best way for people to follow you and support you, and what help do you actually need? Because we would like to help you in some way, and I'm sure our friends.
Incredibly kind of you to ask, and I'm prepared with an answer, believe it or not.
And it's okay to ask for money, because a lot of our people on here get very upset if you don't ask them for money, because they like to donate money and they consider it a spiritual blessing. So don't be shy.
I tell my people all the time, yes, I'm on the front lines. Yes, I'm the guy who's sometimes putting himself in danger to get this stuff out. And yes, I'm the face of it. But without the people who support me, and I tell them all the time, when you support me, you should take as much pride in the work that I do that I take pride in it, because without your help, without your giving, none of that is possible. None of it. So yeah, so I raise money so I can do the work and go and shoot around the world and expose this radicalism. It's pretty simple. You can go to AmiHorowitz.com, AmiHorowitz, AmiHorowitz.com, and there's a donate button there, and they could do it through PayPal or credit card.
Good. We'll put that link in. That we're going to put that link up on the screen in a second.
I appreciate that, but it's no, look, and I always tell, look, we this is part of, and the good thing is, because my money comes from people who donate, a diverse group of people who donate. The important part, I can't be canceled. Okay, cancel culture can't cancel me because I don't get a paycheck from a network or the BBC or Fox News even or CNN where I can be canceled. Because you people are supporting me, and they have to get to you to get to me. Thank God, no matter what we do, what we expose, we can't be canceled because of the help that I get from people like you who donate. So I can't thank you enough for giving the opportunity both to address your audience and to ask them humbly for their support. Because without their help, I can't do the work I do, and other people can't do the work they do.
Well, Amanda Jane Eliash, who she and her ex-husband founded the Eliash multi-billion-dollar head fortune. She says that you are very informative and brave.
Oh, Amanda, that's so sweet.
She is definitely somebody who you should meet when you come to London. She has a salon that she's a sort of social epicenter of London, I would describe her as. And she is definitely somebody. She also goes out to Los Angeles quite regularly. I think she has a home in Los Angeles as well. And she's in New York a lot. Where are you based out of, actually, Amy? Where are we speaking?
I am based out of New York, although it's funny you mentioned Los Angeles. I wear my LA hat proudly. I grew up there. And my mother is still there, so I'm there quite a bit. Amanda, if we're ever in LA at the same time or London, I would love to meet you. But yeah, New York is kind of home now, but LA is always LA is one of my spiritual homes. LA and Israel.
Well,
good. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Can we ask what's your prediction for CHAZ? How long is this going to go on?
I think it's pretty much over.
Is it?
I think in the next couple of weeks we won't be talking. It'll be over.
Good. That's
they've had their 15 minutes of CHAZ fame, have they? Or
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. It's funny how the news cycle. We have a saying here: yesterday's fish and chips. And, you can have a huge story and you think, oh, my gosh, this story is going to just...
Tomorrow's fish and chips.
Yeah, tomorrow's fish and chips. Yeah, tomorrow's fish and chips.
Today's papers are tomorrow's...
Today's papers are... Because,
you are butchering all the sayings.
I'm butchering them. I'm in a muddle tonight. I'm in a terrible muddle.
Say it properly.
The point is, it's tomorrow's fish and chips. Because over here, when you get fish and chips, they give it to you in an old newspaper.
Yes, it's so gross, by the way.
It's gross, yeah. It's revolting. Unless you have it in the north of England, in which case they do it very well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not it's not ideal.
No.
But these stories move on. And the coronavirus thing moves on. And we're delighted. We're opening Camelot Castle back up on the 4th of July, everybody. 4th of July. We're opening up, and you won't catch me wearing a mask. That's all I will say. If you wear a mask, you can wear one, but you won't catch me wearing one. So there we go. Thank you so much, Amy.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Do we have?
Very generous having me on.
Do we have Amy's final thought to our viewers?
I have always been a short-term pessimist and a long-term optimist. I do think in the short term, we have a tremendous amount of challenges, and it will probably get a little bit worse globally than better. But I do think that ultimately we will come out of this better. I think that justice will prevail, true justice, and I think that we'll all be better for it. Is that profound? That doesn't sound very profound.
You know what? That's a very, very good final thought, Amy.
And please keep up your work. We love watching your videos. You are fantastic. We love it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And if there's anything that you ever want to promote on the Israel issue, or if you have a film coming out, we don't have anywhere near the audience that you have, but we've got a few interesting people that follow us that perhaps can fit in with what you're doing. So do let us know. And if you'd like to come on again, we'd love to have you.
We would love to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're so generous.
And you're very, very welcome here at Camelot Castle, physically, if you're in England. We would love.
I come once or twice a year. I'd love to do it.
Oh, good. We hope you come.
Very good. Cheers. All the very best.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. Bye. Oh, he's just
well, how
guy, isn't he?
I thought that was very informative.
Very informative and very
incredibly informative.
And I love his videos. He's just great, isn't he?
Yeah, he does. And you know, he really digs in. You know, he is a very brave interviewer. You know,
but he's also very charming and charismatic and great sense of humor, and I think that really helps. And he sort of gets into communication with his people and gets out of them extraordinary insights.
I got, you know, he didn't tell us who he was working with, that A-list celebrities team, but I got, you know who I think it might be? Sacha Baron Cohen.
Maybe.
Because he did a lot of, that would be a good mix, wouldn't it?
That would be a very good team.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he did all that stuff as Ali G, and then of course his various other different things. But in a comedic, that was a comedic thing. But I think that would be an interesting to.
He also reminded me a little bit of Ross from Friends.
Yes, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit.
He does.
Yeah,
he does.
Very charming. Very, very charming.
Well, there we go.
Alisa says, thank you. I adore Amy, and this interview was tremendous. Well, thank you very much, Alisa.
I think Amy is very special. Very special. And someone says, Shalom, salam, Amy. That's nice. No, he's a very spiritual guy. And I think it has been tough for people, you know, spiritually when they can't gather. And the good news is the churches are reopening. Life is getting going. We're still alive. The body is still alive. Of course, we never die anyway, because we're all immortal, which is excellent. Nigel Anthony Gray. Yes, we would very, very much like to have your friend on the TV channel.
Something's going on in New Zealand.
Something's going on in New Zealand, and Nigel Anthony Gray has been writing to me about it very patiently. Yes, we would like to meet your friend. You can text me. I will have Marek contact you and arrange a time. If you could brief me a little more fully on what the purpose of the interview would be. And you see, this is Camelot Castle TV Network. We just, you know, we schedule interviews on the clock.
On a live show. Oh, look, Julie, this one, Julie Carnell.
Achme. Bear Swanson says, pronounce his name like Achme. You're probably right.
Really? Achme.
You know what? I say everybody's name wrong.
Yeah, you do. You're known for that. Can you go up? Julie, that's Julie Carnell. She's coming to stay.
Julie Carnell.
She's coming to stay here.
The only place to be on July the 4th. Fantastic. Only place to be. You know what? We're already 75% full on July the 4th. So it just shows people love Cornwall. And it is absolutely beautiful.
And Jane and Jerry Marshall are coming on the 4th.
Jane and Jerry Marshall, Julie, so that's nice.
Julie, we're looking forward to meeting you on the 4th.
We'll have to do a special show. We'll have to do a special show on the 4th. I've been told fireworks are not allowed because it would be a little too enthusiastic.
Mary, put that nice
What's
comment.
saying Mary?
She is, I think, an osteopath, aren't you, Mary? I remember.
Mary Sheedy, you two are fantastic. I don't know how you get these amazing people, but you were on the path. Well, you know, that was Mark.
Mark is very effective.
Mark is very effective. And if there's somebody who you feel should be on the show,
tell Mark.
Yeah, let us know. We want to get this girl. I don't know who saw President Trump's speech last night at Students for Trump, but it was very, very interesting. All the way through the president's speech, Charlie Kirk, I was watching it here at Camelot, and Charlie was standing backstage or just to the side of the stage, and the president was chatting, and I was texting back and forth with Charlie, and Charlie was texting back and forth with me, and then Charlie's girlfriend was there, and she's there. She said, oh, you know, I'm here. I'm sitting next to Jared. And, you know, so it's just very exciting. Very, very exciting what is going on.
This is interesting. Where did it go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember seeing you guys in Jerusalem, which Yossi, Yossi, you're not one of the people that took us on that very dangerous.
No, maybe he saw it online. Maybe he saw it on Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we had an amazing time in Jerusalem. We were hosted there by a group called Im Turitsu. And these were charming people. They are the principal Zionist organization. And we were there really
and there was one adrenaline-charged trip they took us on.
They did.
Yes, to Hebron. Which
they did. And I have a fantastic photograph of Irina holding, I don't know what type of machine gun it was, but it was some sort of a machine gun. And I felt very well protected indeed.
IDF and me.
Yeah, I had the IDF basically lent Irina their machine gun as we walked through this area called Judea Samaria. We went to Hebron, which is where Abraham and Mary are actually buried. So that was a very interesting thing. In they call it Palestinians call it the West Bank, and Israel calls it Judea Samaria. And hopefully we're going to be going back there.
Trump was phenomenal last night. He really was, wasn't he? He was awesome.
Trump was fantastic. And I think Charlie Kirk did a fantastic job. That event was flawless. And I think actually what will have happened is that Charlie Kirk's political capital will have increased dramatically. So anyway, lovely to communicate with you all. Did we have any final thoughts, darling?
I'm just seeing what we have here. Thank you, Michelle Stevenson. Love you guys. One place to find the real news right here. Thank you very much. We're trying our best. Julie Carnell, so excited to meet you. Yes, we can't wait to meet you, Julie, on the 4th.
Good.
Yeah, pretty good.
So that is it for tonight. You can get we won't have these very much longer because once we're open, we're taking these off.
They're finished, but for the viewers of TV,
they're finished for everyone but our viewers.
Yes,
we'll make an exception.
Yes, only for the viewers of the network because they are finished. But
you can get vouchers. You go to camelotcastle.com.
Thank
and
you, Mary.
Get those.
Thank you, Mary.
I'm going to hide that now.
That's a very nice message from Mary.
Sending you blue light, Archangel Michael energy. Well, the blue room here, the Infinity Salon, as many of you know, sits on the St. Michael line. So it runs from Glastonbury straight through and actually goes underneath this sofa and goes through the blue room, goes through the Great Hall, and that comes straight down. It's what we call a ley line.
It's a very special energy.
Very special energy.
In Tintagel.
And that's why I think people have it's very, very interesting here. And I've yet to meet anybody that has been to Tintagel. Number one, Tintagel itself and the people that live here are certainly among the friendliest people in all of England. And most people who come here say they've never been anywhere like it in their lives. It's very, very different. It cannot be compared even to a village 3 miles up the road. You couldn't compare Tintagel, for instance, to Boscastle, or you couldn't compare Tintagel to Port Isaac, which is where they make
it's very special.
Doc Martin. Tintagel has got its own energy, and I think it could have something to do with the St. Michael line and the fact that, of course, this was the birthplace of King Arthur, the most popular king in the history of the world, the most popular monarch in the history of the world. Not all monarchs are popular, but King Arthur, and I think it's because he was very inclusive. He said, well, you know, the table is round for a reason. Mel Luck says, wow, my house is on a ley line with a Druid burial mound. Golly. Well, there you go. They do exist. They do exist.
Chris Ram is very funny.
What did Chris Ram say?
Look up.
They're all bodmin in Port Isaac. That is a bit of an insult, Chris, to our friends in Port Isaac. It could be said that they are bodmin in Bodmin. but
that's a reference to.
But that is
Martin.
a reference.
That's
to,
what Chris is making a reference to.
He is. Yes, he is.
He's a very sweet man, Chris.
Bodmin is Cornish for bonkers.
Yeah, some people are.
Some people
Bodmin.
are. Yes.
In Port Isaac and in other places too, unfortunately.
But on the whole, people in Port Isaac are very nice.
Very nice.
But Tintagel, now Tintagel villagers.
Nobody's Bodmin.
Flawless.
Yes.
Flawless characters, fantastic human beings. And the most curious thing about Tintagel, it is probably one of the only villages in the UK where there is zero gossip whatsoever. Zero gossip, which is great.
Yes, and people come here for very different reasons. What we find, there are all sorts of reasons people come to Tintagel for. That is very interesting.
Yeah. All righty, darling.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Joining us.
I don't know when our next broadcast is.
I think it's on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's on Saturday. But we will see you very, very soon. Now, who have we got on Saturday?
Simon Parkes, I think. We swapped here. He was
Simon Parkes.
Yes, Simon Parkes.
So now this is your friend, darling. So what does he talk about?
Well, I mean, he's a very interesting man. Our view, one of Gaynor actually sent me his interview, and his interview was on the subject of the coronavirus, and he is somewhat of an expert in American politics. But he's very interesting because he was a member of parliament, and his parents, I think his mother worked for MI5, his father worked for MI6, and they were connected to American intelligence services. His grandfather was a member of, he was a representative to the United Nations, a Freemason, and I think his father was an OBE. Basically, very interesting pedigree, and he's got this incredible insight into American politics. So I researched him, and then I found out that he's also, oh, look how many people love Simon. He's also an expert on extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, shadow people, all the different races. It was fascinating. And since we had such an interesting interview with Dr. Greer, and everyone loved him so much, and telepathy, whenever we bring up telepathy, that goes, everyone really gets involved, and it's a really popular subject. I thought, let's try and get Simon on the show. And then Mark, again, see Mark right there, Saturday, Simon Parkes, he said Marek basically arranged that.
Well, that's
and
absolutely.
I had a chat with Simon. He's a really lovely man, interesting person, and basically, it's quite interesting. What can I say? People love to talk about aliens, especially in light of the recent disclosure from Pentagon on extraterrestrials, and the most recent comments from President Trump on Roswell, which he said is a very fascinating subject. He knows a lot about it, and he will think about full disclosure before he leaves office. That's what he said to his son in an interview.
Good. So I tell you what we're going to do. Tomorrow, we are going to post up the link for Mr. Park. And what I'd like all of you to do is to share that link, and let's try and have a record broadcast on Saturday. Record broadcast, which will be wonderful.
He was written about in the newspapers because obviously, he's a member of, and I think he was actually elected to be an MP after he went public with his story that he can communicate with aliens and has close encounters with them. He was still elected, so he's definitely a very interesting person. And if you have any questions for Simon, please send us an email or message us. And if you have any questions for him, because he's very happy to answer any question. He said he'll answer anything.
Yes, I mean, there was a very remarkable UFO sighting last night, just above Miami. In Miami. And if you look on Twitter,
multiple sources.
witnesses, and they saw it. And you can basically go onto Twitter, and if you go search on Twitter UFO Miami, you'll see that last night somebody got a very good film of it, and it was an incredible formation. I think one of the things that we've discovered on here, darling, with our audience is that we have a very, very telepathic core group of people here, and we really appreciate that.
And it's very interesting because we are not, I mean, if you really look on YouTube, there are so many channels. There you have Project Camelot, Project Avalon. There's so many channels that are specifically dedicated to this subject of ETs and encounters. And really, no, our audience is not, that's not what primarily we are interested in. But what I'm really fascinated by is how interested people are that are not specifically focused on that subject in this area. And it's become more so, I think, over the last 3 months. I think because people are now looking to perhaps maybe something more in life other than what we've been getting. And if you really look at, there's people who talk about aliens, they have been branded as crazy historically for years. But then if you really look at who's denying the UFOs and ETs, only the governments are the only ones, and the mass media. And now that's changed. That it's like in the last 3 months, it's the first time it's actually changed in terms of the denial. They're no longer denying it. The government's no longer denying it. So I think it's true. Isn't it true? So I think that's a very interesting time for that, subject, because I think that subject is very relevant.
Very good.
So yes, so please send us questions for Simon. Simon is very interesting man.
Good. So we will see you soon.
See you definitely on Saturday.
And I will leave you with our closing sequence.
Good night.
Good night.